Interpolation function, or shape functions as they are commonly known, is a single step which is responsible for accurate FEM analysis. Interpolation functions are used to interpolate the field variables over the element. Often polynomials are selected as interpolation functions because they can easily be differentiated, and the degree of polynomial which is to be chosen as the interpolation function depends upon the number of nodes assigned to an element. Talking in terms of one-dimensional elements, if a one-dimensional element has two nodes, then the degree of polynomial is going to be 1. That is, we are simulating, we have a linear element, while if the number of nodes happens to be 3, then the degree of the polynomial is 2. That is, we now have a quadratic element. Now in the coming few slides, we are going to discuss some of the elements which are commonly found in FEM applications. It may be noticed that irrespective of the geometry, the elements happen to be simple in shape. It may also be noticed that for one-dimensional analysis, all elements happen to be line elements. For a two-dimensional analysis, in which the domain is practically going to be area, the elements happen to be triangular or quadrilateral in shape, in the sense that there is no element which is pentagon, or there is no element which happens to be hexagon in shape. Area elements are only of two types. They may be triangular elements, or they may be quadrilateral elements. Similarly, in 3D case, where we are going to deal with volume elements, most of the time we are dealing with a four-noded prism, or a six or a eight-noded hexahedral, these sort of elements. So coming to the one-dimensional elements. So on the screen on display is a line element. It consists of two nodes, one node at the left end, other node at the right end. So the node number 1 is located at a coordinate location of x1, and the unknown parameter happens to be t1. It may be noticed that T1, that is temperature, is going to be unknown only for the heat analysis, but for cases such as deformation in solid mechanics, the unknown could be a linear displacement or a angular displacement, or it could be a vertical displacement, such as in case of beams. So depending upon the type of analysis which is being made, the unknown is going to be at this particular node. Similarly, for the node located at the right end, this is node number 2 at a location of x2, and this is t2 in terms of the second unknown. Now the thing is, since there are only two nodes, that is only two unknowns, t1 and t2, using 2 points you can only draw a line in between. Line obviously is going to be a linear relationship. So this particular element on display is also known as a linear element, and the relationship of temperature with respect to the space coordinate x happens to be a linear relationship given by t is equal to a1 into x plus a2, and obviously the degree of freedom also happens to be 2. The degree of freedom happens to be 2 because there are only 2 nodes in this particular element. And similarly, in the linear polynomial written on the display, t is equal to a1x plus a2, the value of a1 and a2 are unknown. In fact, the number of unknowns also happens to be equal to the degree of freedom, and that is the degree of the number of unknowns which are supposed to be determined. Similarly, for another element, a cubic element, it has 3 nodes. Node number 1 on the left hand, node number 2 on the right, and node number 3 at the center. Kindly notice that it is not node 1, node 2 and node 3. It is, the sequence is node 1, node 3 and node 2. And similarly, the coordinate locations are also given in terms of x, and the unknowns, that is t1, t2 and t3. Similarly, the polynomial, this is going to be a quadratic element, and the polynomial which is going to represent the variation of temperature for this quadratic element is going to be t is equal to a1 into x square plus a2 into x plus a3. So since there happens to be x raised to power 2, therefore this particular element is known as the quadratic element. And similarly, the degree of freedom for this element happens to be 3. Kindly notice that the degree of freedom which has been illustrated over here, that has been written on the assumption that there is only one unknown for every node. There are plenty of cases, in fact for the majority of cases, the number of unknowns happen to be more than one for every node. For example, in the case of the example which we are going to take in the next slide, so coming to the two-dimensional element first, the two-dimensional domain is divided into a triangular element. It has 3 nodes at the 3 corners, node 1, node 2, node 3. Kindly notice that this particular sequence is in a clockwise direction from node 1, node 2 and node 3, that is in the clockwise direction. And this happens to be a linear element. Why it is linear? Because the polynomial does not contain any quadratic terms. It does not contain the products of x and y and things like that. So it is linear in terms of x and y. So therefore this particular element is known as the it is a pure linear element. The degree of freedom happens to be 3 because there are 3 nodes, and a1, a2 and a3 are the 3 unknowns, that is equal to the number of nodes in the element. Similarly, we have a 4-sided quadrilateral element also. Please notice that in this particular case the sides of the quadrilateral happens to be straight. Therefore this quadrilateral more or less appears to be like a rectangle. It could also be a square, but if we have more nodes in this element, then the sides are not going to be straight, they are going to be in fact curved. This we are going to see in the next slide. For the time being, there are 4 nodes, node 1, node 2 and node 3 at the 4 locations given by x1, y1, x2, y2 and things like that, and 4 unknowns in terms of t1, t2, t3 and t4. The polynomial for this particular case is given by the expression on the display. Kindly notice that this is the terms are x, y, and there is also a product of x and y. There are actually some rules which are supposed to be followed for the polynomial which is going to be used for representing the variation of the unknown within the element. In this sense that there are no terms of x square, there are no terms of y square, there are no terms of x square, y square and things like that. But there are terms of x, y and the product of x into y, for which some certain set of rules are supposed to be followed, which we are going to study in the future classes. And the degree of freedom obviously are 4, and for both the elements on display, both of them happen to be pure linear element. Similarly, coming to the some higher, so we can have additional nodes located at the centers of the sites. So in this particular case, there is a triangle on display having 6 nodes. Therefore, degree of freedom happens to be 6, or it could be a 9-noded element for the case of a quadrilateral, and therefore the degree of freedom are going to be 9. In this case, there are 3 nodes located along the upper edge, that is 1, 5 and 2. There is a additional node at the center of the edge, 1 and 2. Therefore, this particular edge can actually be a curve also. This is simply because of the presence of the node number 5 between 1 and 2. Similarly, node number 6 is present between 2 and 3. Therefore, edge 2, 6, 3 can also be a curve. Similarly, the other 2 edges can also be curves. But if node number 5, 6, 7 and 8 were not present in this particular element, then all the 4 edges would have been straight. And kindly notice that there happens to be a 9th node also present, which is at the center of the element. In actual practice, however, it is not necessary that the additional nodes are going to be exactly at the center of the lines. For example, it is not necessary for node number 5 to be placed exactly between 1 and 2. And similarly, node number 9 to be placed exactly at the centroid of the element. They have a certain range of variations, but there again are some rules to be followed, which are going to govern the extent by which these nodes can be placed at some other locations, other than the centers, that we are going to study in the future classes. Now coming to the next variations, all of them obviously are the quadratic elements. Some various 2-dimensional quadratic elements. And for this illustration, I am going to use only the quadratic elements. In fact, for explaining this particular concept, I could have used triangular elements also, but I am illustrating this concept using the quadratic elements only. So we have a 4-noded quadratic element. It is pure. Okay, then it is pure. Why it is pure? This is something to be studied later on. But the thing is that the moment you place a 5th node between 1 and 2, we have a higher order element, because there is a additional node over there. Similarly, I can place for the case where the 5th node is present, the degree of freedom is going to be 5. Similarly, I can place a 6th node over here. The degree of freedom is going to be 6. 7th node over here. The degree of freedom is going to be 7. 8th node at the right, at the left. The degree of freedom is going to be 8. And the 9th node at the center, the degree of freedom now is going to be 9. Now the thing is, for the 4-noded element on the left, the element is a pure linear element, and for the 9-noded element on the right, the element is a pure quadratic element. And for all other elements, that is elements which have 5 nodes, 6, 7 and 8, they have sort of a combined behavior. Combined in the sense that the behavior overlaps a pure linear and a quadratic behavior, a combination of these two. But the 4-noded element on the left is pure linear, and the 9-noded element on the right happens to be a pure quadratic element. The next step to find the elemental properties. In fact, when we are talking about elemental properties, we are looking for a relationship between the cause and effect sort of a relationship. That is a relationship between the force and displacement, or a relationship between flux and temperature, these sort of relationships. In elemental properties, a metric equation is established which relates the nodal values of the unknown function to other parameters, such as expression of the type f is equal to k into d, where d happens to be the nodal values of the unknown parameter, and f happens to be the force which is acting on the element, and obviously k is the relationship between f and d. Kindly notice that the size that this equation which is written on the display is in terms of a matrix relationship. F, k and d all are matrix. If we are talking about one-dimensional linear element, that is an element which has 2 nodes, since it has 2 nodes and there is only one unknown for every node, a one-dimensional linear element is going to have 2 unknowns. Therefore, the size of the matrix B is going to be 2 rows and 1 column. Similarly, the size of the matrix F is also going to be 2 rows and 1 column. And correspondingly, the matrix K, which is going to relate F and D, is going to be a square matrix of size 2 into 2. In fact, most of the time, K is known as the stiffness matrix. Stiffness obviously is the stiffness of a spring, and by default all the deformations cases which we are going to study, all the deformations have elasticity built in them. So whensoever element has elasticity, obviously it has some stiffness also associated with this. Now the thing is, even if we are studying cases belonging to fluids or cases belonging to heat transfer, we are going to encounter a relationship of this type, and even for these cases, the matrix K is going to be termed as the stiffness matrix, even though there is no actual stiffness in fluids or in heat. But still, the term stiffness matrix is going to be used for the cases of heat transfer and fluid dynamic also. And for finding the elemental properties, there happen to be, there happen to be 3 approaches which are in common use. They happen to be the variational approach, the Galerkin approach, and a relatively simpler approach known as the direct method. In fact, among all the 3 methods, the direct approach happens to be the simplest one. Therefore, as far as the initial exposure to FEM is concerned, the direct approach happens to be the most popular one, and we are also going to deal with that. But once the concepts of FEM are clear with the help of the direct approach, then we move on to more practical methods that is the Gallatin method and the variation approach. Among the three methods which are available for the evaluation of stiffness matrix, that is the direct method, variational approach, and the weighted residual matrix, the direct method happens to be the most simplest one and results in the clear insight into the finite element method. It is therefore recommended at the earlier stage of learning. It, however, has a limitation that it finds its application to one-dimensional elements like bars, trusses, and beams. The variational method is much easier to use for deriving the finite element equations for 2 and 3-dimensional elements. However, it requires the existence of a function that, upon minimizing, yields the stiffness matrix and relates the elemental equations. For problem existing in structural and stress-strain analysis, we can use the principle of minimum potential energy as a function. This function has in fact been introduced in the undergraduate courses of basic applied mechanics. The weighted residual method happens to be the most flexible among all the three methods. It allows the finite element method to be applied directly to any differential equation without having the existence of variational principle. Once the elemental equations of all the elements have been obtained, the next step is to find the set of global equations for the whole solution region, and therefore we must assemble all the elemental equations. In other words, we must combine local element equation for all elements used for discretization, and for this elemental connectivities are going to be used. Before the solution process commences, the boundary conditions are applied on the global equations. These conditions are to be imposed on the global equations for obtaining the correct FEM solution. The global stiffness matrix so obtained as a result of the assembly process is typically sparse, symmetric, and positive defined. To obtain the solution, direct and iterative methods can be used to yield the nodal value of the sought function. In many cases, we need to calculate additional parameters. For example, in problems related to stress and strains, the values of strain are also of additional interest apart from the displacement values obtained at the nodes. These strains and stresses are obtained in a process known as post-processing of the solution.